Hi, I'm Renee from the Pierce Conservation District, and today we're going to talk about composting livestock manure, kind of the basics, why you do it, and how you can use it later. So the reason you want to compost your livestock manure is, and the reason you want to collect it is, with all the rain that we get in Washington, if you just leave it where the animals are eating or where they're hanging out, you're definitely going to build up mud over time. The organic matter in the manure is going to add to your mud. It's going to add some more pathogens in there that will be detrimental to the livestock's hooves and definitely not good for water quality. So it is a good amendment to put out on your fields. You're adding organic matter that is going to hold more moisture throughout the summer, which will help your pastures stay greener. It's got a lot of micronutrients that you can't get in commercial fertilizer, and of course it has, the basic phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium that your grasses are going to need. So there's not much to the composting process. You just kind of have to set it up to make the microorganisms that are going to do all the work for you happy, and then they do everything for you. So basically you're going to need it to be at least 3 feet tall. You're going to need it to be about as wet as a wrung out sponge, so you can squeeze it. You're going to get a little drop right here, but you're not going to be able to squeeze water or leachate out of it. And you're going to need air in there, because microorganisms like us need air to survive. So if you have the correct moisture, then generally you're going to have the correct amount of air. So depending on the type of manure you're picking up or the time of year, you may need to do some things to help it have more air, or to add water in there so it can be as wet as a wrung out sponge. Generally in the winter time, I'm picking up a lot of manure outside in my paddock, so it is the right amount of moisture. And I don't turn my piles, but instead we have septic pipes with holes drilled into them that we lay down before we start adding manure to our bins, so it provides passive aeration. And in the summertime, when I'm picking up dry material, I've got a little sprinkler that I'll put on the pile and run for maybe 30 minutes once a week to add moisture down into the pile. To provide more storage capacity in our manure bin, when you start filling up your manure bin, the manure is going to start rolling out of there. So what we have done is we have 2x6s that we've cut, that we just slide in, and as we're building up our pile, they'll start to tip if the material isn't next to it. So I just take the pitchfork and push a little down in the crack. And then in the springtime, when we're putting this out on our pastures, we'll just do the opposite. As we're unloading this with the bucket, we'll just pull each board out. It's falling out right now, but when it's really composted, the material will kind of bind to itself. And when you're pulling out the boards, it's not going to just tumble out of there. There'll be kind of a solid wall of manure that you're working with. When I add a load of manure on, I'll shake a flake of straw on that. It kind of makes straws that go into the material. So then, as far as time goes on when this is going to be ready, you can, if you're turning your pile, you can have your manure pretty much cooked and ready to go in about 21 days. But since you don't want to be putting that fertilizer out on your pastures in the winter time when the plants can't use the nutrients, we built our bins to provide 6 months storage. So basically we fill this one up first in the fall, starting when we start putting our horses in our paddocks, and after we clean the bins out one last time in September and fertilize our fields, we'll start building this one up, and then when it's full, usually around the first of the year, then we'll move to our second bin. So if you really want to ensure that you kill the pathogens and the weed seeds in your compost pile, especially if you're putting out your compost on your leafy vegetable garden, you want to make sure you can do it two ways. There's either what's called static composting, which is what I do, so it's basically sitting in one spot. We've got the air pipes going in, but we're not turning all the material. So in that route, the static pile method, you need it to be 131 degrees for at least 3 days in a row. And you can buy a compost thermometer at a hardware store or gardening store. They're about this long, and you press it into the pile. They cost maybe $15. Or the other route, if you want to really completely compost it all the way around the edges, everything pile, you can turn it. So in that method, works better with a 3-bin system. You'd fill up the first bin, turn it to the second bin, move it to the third bin, and as you keep moving things down, your end pile is completely composted. But if you want to ensure that you kill everything, it needs to be 131 degrees for at least 15 days and with a minimum of 5 turns of your material. So like I said, ours is stored all winter. We built it to provide 6 months of storage. So by the time we put it out, it's composted good enough for me. I'm not using it on lettuce or anything like that. It just goes out on our pastures. So I know it's cooked enough. If you are in a bigger hurry and you want to make sure your material is composted enough, you can set out a little square on the grass, apply about 1 inch of compost. If it turns yellow, then it's not quite ready. If it turns green, it's ready. And the reason it turns yellow, you may have heard the term burning your garden. What's happening is the microorganisms need more nitrogen to finish out their composting process. So what they're going to do is they're going to rob the nitrogen out of your soil, and when they do that, the grass is going to turn yellow. So that's a good, easy, quick test to do. But like I said, mine is not turned, so the edges, kind of still look like horse manure. But once you dig in here, this pile's been building since February. Once you start digging into the pile, you can see that further down it is more of that crumbly material, looks more like compost, not horse manure. I'm not using this on my vegetable garden, and I'm not in a hurry. So generally, I'm filling the bins up. I'll put the first one out as early as April, as soon as I can get out on my fields and not cause any damage with the tractor. And then the second pile we usually put out in May if we have good weather conditions. This year, the fields that I needed to spread it on, I hadn't been grazed when the timing was right. We've had a lot of rain, so this bin I'm probably just going to hold over and put it out in the fall with this one. So this material over here has been basically cooking, sitting here since probably probably February. So like I said, I don't turn my pile, so it's not completely composted all the way through, but a good way to test to see if it's composted enough that it's not going to pull a lot of nitrogen out of your soil to finish composting it. If your material isn't composted and you put it out there, the microorganisms that are trying to break it down, if they need more nitrogen, they're going to steal it out of your soil. And that's, you might have heard the term burning your garden. That's what's happening, is it's basically robbing the nitrogen. So what you can do to see if your material is ready to go, you can lay out a little square, apply about 1 inch of compost. If it turns yellow, the material isn't quite cooked enough, but if it turns green, then it's ready to go. Okay, so this pile is what we're collecting in the summertime. Our horses go out at night, but they come back in during the day to get minerals and salt and some hay that they eat as roughage, especially in the early grazing season when the grass is really full of water. this pile has been building since we emptied this one in April. So, you know, a horse is going to make roughly a cubic yard every 30 days, which is roughly the size of your kitchen stove. So it is a lot of material. So you need to really take that into consideration when you're sizing your manure bin. And the conservation district, we can help you figure out how big your bin needs to be, taking into consideration your number of animals, length of storage time, how much bedding you use, that sort of stuff. Be happy to help you with that. So a pile that's building like this, we haven't added any water yet because we haven't really had a lot of dry weather yet, but I'll probably start putting the sprinkler on here in another week or so. But you really, like I said, want it to be about as wet as a wrung out sponge. And when you dig in here, you're going to see a lot of gnats, which are not a bad thing. They don't cause any problems. You're going to see the steam coming off because we're starting to get the high temperatures here. And you're going to see some white material that's just some of the fungus that's growing in here. It's a totally natural part of the process. So it's definitely starting to cook. And then, like I said, I apply my compost during the growing season. So usually April, May, maybe in June if we're going to get some rain. And then again in late August, early September. You really want to get your compost out before the 1st of October when we start to get freezes that are going to start your grass going into dormancy when it doesn't need any additional food. So generally 1 animal unit per acre, which is one 1,000-pound animal, so say a horse or 1 cow per acre, will provide all the phosphorus and potassium your pastures need. You definitely want to get a soil test before you put out any additional nutrients. The district has a first 5 free soil testing programs, so give us a call. We can help you with that. Horses don't produce a lot of nitrogen in their manure, so that's usually one of the only nutrients that I need to add to my pastures to help my grass grow as much as it can. And if you have more than 1 animal unit per acre, usually you're going to have too many nutrients for your property. So give us a call. We have a manure share program. There's always gardeners looking for composted manure, and hopefully we can help you find a source to take your excess material off your farm. If you have any additional questions or want any assistance with setting up your compost bins, please give us a call.